wants everybody to know that he has the ice creams.
What is the name of the song?
Mm.
Merry looks like Merry Melodies. Well, it's
Well,
better than the one that's playing Christmas music.
yeah.
It's like Christmas is over. Stop playing that.
Well, we're going live now. And hi, folks. We are live with the final show of the Lessons Learned podcast with a nice tune in the background from our friend Chapelman, who has a visiting ice cream truck in the back. Um, and we're going to be talking tonight basically all the games that we played during the year, or at least the top 5, top 10 that we kind of remember played. Warning, not necessarily all these games are new. They didn't come out in 2017. We're not that kind of podcast. We just talk about the kind of games we like and why we like them. So we're going to be talking about games you heard about before, but they were significant for us in 2017, and we're going to be talking about them. So in no particular order, I think I'm going to start with the last game, or game I'm currently playing, which is Doom 3, BFG edition. Really, I want to say just Doom in general, all the Doom games. Because what happened was I got it on GOG, and then I also bought, I said this before, the original version of Doom, like the Ultimate Doom. It's like, oh, because I thought they were not, they were different games. And what turns out to be that, yes, Doom 3 is a different game, but included Doom and Doom 2. And on top of that, I really got into playing Doom. It's like, oh, I want to check out the new Doom, which has no subtitle. It's just Doom, not Doom 4. And I got to play that as well. And oh boy, that was a lot of fun, just the demo. So now I have it. And probably as soon as I finish Doom 3, I'm going to start playing the new Doom. And the thing about it is, it's sort of, everything comes full circle, right? I mean, the original Doom was not the first, but really was the game that captured the idea of an FPS, even before the term FPS came along, right? It was also a benchmark. Like people talk about Crytek engines and other games. I don't know if there's any game right now that could be considered a benchmark. GTA 5, maybe. I'm not really sure.
The Witcher, maybe.
The Witcher, Call of Duty, maybe. Sorry. But that's about it. But back in the day, in the 90s, when it came out, it was shareware, The idea of it was also one of the first truly episodic games. Because it was shareware, you only got the first episode. And then, when you bought it, you got the complete game, the rest of them. And then there was an expansion as well. So it really was 4 episodes in total. That's the original game. And you had to, mail order catalog thing. You got a card with it with the shareware, and you sent the card, and that's like, it was like what, $25, $30, I think it was. It was pretty cheap, right? But it's all sold like gangbusters, and it was a lot of fun. Doom 3. What can I say about Doom 3? I've been playing it. There's some areas that are very frustrating because they took the idea of the horror aspect of Doom and said, we're going to make a horror game. But then you still get to shoot demons in the face, so you're not really scared. And it's very corridor shooting, like very narrow spaces, and enemies sort of pop out in front of you and behind you. And it's not a bad game, but it's clearly the weakest of them all. And when they made the new Doom, they said, no, we're gonna update the old formula and just go full bore. Doom 3 does have the best story of all the Dooms I played, which again kind of reinforces my point about storytelling in video games. Is like you need to get the gameplay down first and have a strong framework if you're going to have a story, but you don't need it. Like literally in Doom, when you start the new Doom, somebody starts talking to you. It's like, oh, this is what's happening. You just literally rip off the screen and just go like, screw it. I'm just going to kill things, right? And you just get into it. I mean, and I think part of the reason why I got so giddy when I played that Doom was that it was both reminiscent of the original Doom, but was so different from Doom 3 because all the enemies in Doom 3 are also very bullet spongy. So you start shooting at them and it's like they just take round after round. Like in the original Doom, if you had a shotgun and like the lower enemies, you just got close enough to just blow them with one shot or 2 shots at the most, right? The shotgun always felt like it was very, very powerful. So for what it is, Doom 3 is a good game. The VFG edition has an extra chapter to it. I don't know if I'm going to play that one. I may or may not. Probably won't do it on stream, so I don't bore my people on my stream. But yeah, I mean, that was it brought a lot of cool memories, you know. And I'm looking forward to playing the new Doom. So there you go.
Yeah, so I compiled a list of games that I played. It looks like at the beginning of the year, I started trying to play a bunch of small indie games on my Vita. I played Actual Sunlight, Protest, and Three Fourths Home kind of earlier in the year. And honestly, I remember liking Actual Sunlight. I know it's a small visual novel that deals with depression, but I honestly can't remember exactly what else about it was about. So unfortunately, I guess it was forgettable.
Hmm.
Proteus was just a walking simulator, which was okay for what it was. But Three Fourths Home is strangely kind of stuck with me more. So essentially, it's essentially an interactive narrative, and it's very. I would use the word interactive very loosely because you're essentially you're a woman who's visiting her parents, and they have like a kid, and she kind of went out for a little bit, and she's driving back, and during and she's on her cell phone just talking to her mom, and then she passes her phone over to her father and then her son, and they're just, you just kind of get this context about everybody's life just from this phone call. And at the same time, as she's trying to get home, there's a tornado warning. So she's trying to get home, and but all you really do is just you're kind of holding one button and just to keep the car moving, because if you make the car stop, the game just kind of stops. So that's the only interactive part really, and some dialogue choices that you get. That you can either be nice or be kind of, an ass. And there's some other little bonus extra things too, like her brother's like stories and stuff, which are kind of interesting to read. I'm not entirely sure why this game sat with me more, like from the beginning of the year, why I can remember a lot of details about it. But I guess it's just that the character building, you just get a sense of, it's just kind of unique, just learning so much about this family just from one phone call conversation, at least from the perspective of the audience.
Yeah. Talking about indie games, I think the one that really surprised me, and I wanted to play for a long time and finally got to play it on stream, in fact, was my the second game I played on stream, because I tried a JRPG and just couldn't stick with it. I may finish it one day, but that day is not today, was Apotheon. And Apotheon is a Greek-themed kind of God of War, but it's 2D action platformer with a lot of combat. And I think it hit with me because the music was great. People think, oh, indie games, you're going to think like, and we're going to probably talk about Stardew Valley a little later, because that's a game I played also quite a bit this year. It doesn't use pixel graphics in the way, it's not that retro 90s NES, Super NES kind of things, 8-bit, early 16-bit kind of thing. NES will be in the 80s. But rather it's very strong aesthetic, right? And the history and the mythology, and I'm basically spoilers for people who haven't played it, and I know this is gonna go on a lot. Spoilers. Okay, so you're being warned. Spoilers. It's God of War. The plot is God of War, but the execution of it's pretty awesome. It did have some puzzles that could be frustrating, at least for me. I'm not a big puzzle guy myself, but overall, the presentation, the combat, when I discover, for example, the Cyclops show up, it's like, how do I, they seem to be vulnerable. Wait a minute, if I hit him in the eye, right, then I can kill him pretty quickly, right? And you can build weapons, and you have like Greek fire and potions and stuff like that. And the final fight with Zeus is pretty intense, right? And it's a nice, and that's one of the things it's a nice blend of narrative elements, especially the visuals, the music, the setting, They really went into, sort of capturing it. It's almost like you're literally playing on the outside. If you were to take one of those Greek urns, vase, and turn what's on the side and into a game, right? That's the look of it, and they did a great job with that. I was like, wow. I like to see more indie games that sort of, because eventually I think the sort of retro, it's already sort of running down. People are getting tired of it, the pixel art. I mean, people are still gonna play it, but it's not. The nostalgia is running out. So I think
Yeah.
if you find more games that can do that, you're gonna still have a very much of a vibrant indie scene. So I like to see more games like Apotheon, right? Um, and even you can take, and that's also the fact that you can take an idea that is already being done by a more popular game and still do it very well.
Yeah, I've seen this game's logo before, but I didn't realize what kind of game it was.
Mm-hmm.
It looks pretty.
Yeah, it is.
So next up for on my list, I played Okami HD for the PlayStation 3, which I think in a different one of our different podcasts, I kind of like, why do we need another Okami HD remake? Apparently shopping during the holidays, I realized that it wasn't just released on PS4; it's also released on for the PC and for Xbox One now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and actually, I take back like that. That's great because this game, it is phenomenal. Like, I know this game. I suppose this game was overlooked when it was on PlayStation 2 because this game pretty much kind of made Capcom shut down the studio, a Clover Studio, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But if you like Zelda, if you like the Zelda, the Nintendo 64 Zelda games, the style, the fighting,
Mm-hmm.
the mechanics, you'll love this game because it's essentially, it takes a lot of those elements from Zelda, but it has its own art style, it has its own story, and it just looks gorgeous. I mean, it is places. The graphics are a lot better than Nintendo 64, but it just has so much flair to it and just so much to do. And you think the game's over kind of really early, but it's not. It just keeps going and going. And I'm so sad that this game got overlooked, but I believe that most of the people from that studio went on to Platinum Games. I'm not 100% sure. I think that's what happened to a lot of those people that worked in that studio.
Yeah.
So at least something good came out of it.
Yeah. I saw it on the winter sale as well, but I didn't know if I wanted to pick it up. I might still pick it up. The winter sale ends in January 4.
Yeah.
But again, because I made a big buy today, my credit card might not be in the mood to do that. But well, we'll see. And also going to be very busy in this couple of weeks, running up to New Year's. But yeah, I mean, that's a good thing about re-releasing these games in platforms that haven't seen it. I mean, that's another good thing about HD remix. Doom, of course, got released and re-released and released again as a the version. And another game I want to talk about, which I think probably the game I played the most this year, was Skyrim. But it wasn't Skyrim Special Edition, folks. It was Skyrim Vanilla Edition. Why? Because I got it for PC. And it was like, oh, I wanna play this game. I played the hell out of it in 360 with all the DLC, but I wanted to play around with mods. And dear Lord, there's tons and tons of mods, and I just kept adding mods and doing things and going places and messing around with like god items and new locations and new quest lines and stuff like that, and new powers and abilities. And for all the things that people say now, I have Fallout 4 waiting for me, so I'm probably gonna have to uninstall Skyrim this year. Come January the 1st, Skyrim is out, and I'm gonna install Fallout 4 as my big game that's always gonna be in my machine, the big modded game, because you have all the problems, and that copy of Skyrim is broken. Like, there's places where you go and there's like, oh, this should be happening, but I have so many mods that something broke, and I don't want to uninstall the entire mods and to reinstall them again and see which one broke. It's like, I don't care. This game, I can still play the game. For all the stuff, all the crap that Bethesda gets, as they should, because they pull out all the nasty stuff out there. I would say that the fact that games are so moddable and also are still fun after so many years, and that's why the game keeps coming out for everything. Now on the Switch, it's been on multiple versions on PC, on the Xbox One, and the Xbox One X is probably gonna have it. The PlayStation 4, and now of course you have mods on PlayStation 4 Limited and mods for the Xbox One, quote unquote unlimited mods. Although I don't think the modding. I mean, I haven't tried to do mods on consoles, but I cannot believe that it's gonna be as flexible as it is on PC.
No.
And also, you have the Creators Club that's now attached to Fallout 4 and try to monetize mods. And it's like, Bethesda, just give it up. I mean, you still have some goodwill out there. Don't throw it into the fire.
I'm surprised we haven't heard more about that this year. I wonder if they've even bothered updating it.
Yeah, they know. I mean, according to Jim Sterling, the Switch, the creators, I think it's still there. The Creators Club is still there. Like, and there was that was built on the Creators Club that was built for Skyrim, right? So that's supposed to be the places you put mods on Steam. It's the charging money for mods part, the micro DLC. That's like people are like, oh Jesus Christ. Talking about micro DLC, a game that I played briefly, but I don't think I will pick up again, was Destiny 2.
Eesh.
Yeah, I played the beta, and I was like, this is it's okay. It's a MMO with shooting mechanics. It didn't nothing really grabbed me about it. And I saw the rabbit holes. Like, yeah, if I get into this, it's gonna consume my life just running around doing the same things. And I did years of World of Warcraft, so that was not gonna. Talking about another game that was meh was Mass Effect Andromeda. I say I played it this year. I may still pick it up, mostly for streaming, because I want to go through the entire Mass Effect saga, and I want to give the game its fair shake. But again, I played the demo / test / vertical slice, whatever is that Origin is calls it these days. Yeah, and it was a game that I kept playing and playing and playing and waiting for it to sort of grab me. I was like, sure. Okay. I mean, I remember, to be fair, I remember playing the original Mass Effect, and I had to start that game like 4 or 5 times because there was a part where I was completely confused. I didn't know what the heck was going on. It's Eden Prime, where you talk to the worker after this cutscene with Nihilus. Nihilus gets shot. Spoilers for Mass Effect if you haven't know about that. And then you have to start fighting, and it's a train stop, whatever. And I was so confused with the controls, so I didn't know what to do. So I had to stop the game and start over again. But the thing about it is, I actually stuck with that game. I wanted to finish that game because the intro was interesting, because the world was interesting. That didn't happen to me with Mass Effect Andromeda. I never had a place where I didn't know what was going on, because basically it's Mass Effect, right? Even though it has a lot of menus and stuff like that I don't know why they did it that way, but that's fine. It's just that I was like, okay, this is happening. This guy's talking. That gal's talking. This is happening. And this is me not caring. And I wanted to care, and I was waiting for something to say, oh, yeah, this is important. This is an interesting character. This is something that grabs me. And I was like, no. No. So those are two of the games I would say, vertical slices. If we're going to put in categories, I would put the vertical slice of the year, Destiny 2 and Andromeda, as being the meh experiences of the year. So what do you got for us?
Let's see. Next game I played was probably one of my biggest meh of the year. I actually started writing a review for this that I haven't finished. Uh, this was a Legend of K Anniversary Edition for the PlayStation 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so this game came out in originally came out in 2004. This is a game that I probably saw as a demo back when Babbage's was still a thing, right before they were probably bought out by GameStop. And I was like, hey, yeah, that game looks kind of fun. It's got a cat people and a bunch of animal people, so that's already up my alley. So I finally played it after all these years, and oh, wow, this game was disappointingly bad. I can say the good thing about it is I can say, for the most part, the gameplay is competent, but man, the story is so bad. The voice acting is terrible. The dialogue is bad, and there's this one character that's like, how did you get away with this? This is so racist. It's a character that looks so stereotypically Asian and has this horrible stereotypical Asian voice. I'm like, how did you get away with this? It's like, is it because you're a German company? I believe the studio was German, and I don't think they're around anymore, but it's owned by THQ Nordic now. The rights of it. The scary thing is that the remake credits say like, oh, Legend of K will be back at some point. I'm like, really? People really big fans of this franchise? Like, I can't imagine. Maybe next year I'll finish that review and put it together.
Yeah. Another game I played, and this one is particular this year because I played it in and around Hurricane Maria, and that was Stardew Valley. And I credit that game for when I could play it was to just chill, putting me in a chill mood, right? Because again, it's an indie game, has a strong focus, and I just could play it, and it was like, I just zone into the game, do what I need to do, and just have fun. And I credit that game with enabling to deal with a lot of the stress around the situation with Hurricane Maria, that hit us pretty hard, and we're still dealing with the aftermath here. Although, again, I said this before in another podcast, and I say it again, I was very lucky, but still, it was a thing. And it will probably be a thing for me for the rest of my life. It's an impactful thing. So Stardew Valley, something I played before, and I want to talk about Stardew Valley because comparing, for example, to Andromeda, to other games that I played this year, it's a game that gets updated often with new content for free, and it keeps selling. Right, it keeps selling because it's a good. When it came out, it was a solid, good little game. They put more and more content. I think Big Fish is people who put big content of it, and they just keep maintaining a good game. It's a good side of what the patching culture should be, right? And instead of saying, "Oh, we're gonna release an incomplete game with bugs and this and that," no, we're gonna give you a core solid experience, and then we're gonna build up on that, right? I think that's the ideal what people think when they think, "Oh, patching," as a good concept, right? As opposed to the reality in most games where it isn't. So
yeah, the poor Andromeda's an unfinished mess, and it's finished in its current state. My next game was kind of a disappointment, which was Styx Shards of Darkness, which is a sequel to Styx Master of Shadows, which is a spin-off of Orcs and Men. This one was more disappointing. It's just a stealth game with this witty, foul-mouthed goblin. And he's what made the first game really tolerable, because I'm not very good at stealth games, but I did enjoy him the most. And just what was going on with this story. This one was just so meh. Like, I didn't care what was going on. Styx didn't really need to be involved. He's just involved because he has just cuz. And his foul mouthness, he's still foul mouthed, but it's most of his dialogue now, instead of being just witty, it's just references. Like references to things that he wouldn't have any reason to say. It's almost fourth wall breaking in terms of like, oh, like this would be this cave would be a great place for me to be as a hideout if I was like a rich eccentric person who dressed up like a bat. You know, you make references like that, just talking to himself, and I'm like, really? And I just kind of stopped playing it halfway through, and just I'm probably not going to pick it up again.
It's the meme the game.
Yeah, pretty much. It's at that point that it's trying too hard.
Yeah. I'm gonna smooch two games I played quite a bit of this year. One on stream, one on not, and that's Shadow of Mordor and Kingdoms of Amalur.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I'm gonna smoosh them together is that they're both quote unquote open world games. The way I play Kingdoms of Amalur was try to play stealthy. It didn't actually work out. But Shadow of Mordor, I basically played as stealthy as I could. Both games start strong. Both games have an interesting setting, although I would say the setting in Kingdoms of Amalur, visually speaking, is even better than Shadows of Mordor because it's more colorful and it's a little more variety. But they suffer from that sort of open world, empty world syndrome, right? Where eventually you're just doing stuff because it's the stuff that's there, because it's the thing that you got to do, because you need to put something, you have to put stuff in the world. So it's sort of self-referential. It's sort of like you keep doing the same thing over and over. I had the same problem with them at the end game. Like I finished the games because I was like, I'm bored. I just want to finish it. I just need to finish it. Although I would say the DLC for Kingdoms of Amalur, which is a much older game, was pretty interesting. Don't know if I would play it again just for the DLC. Because once you see it once, I'm like, okay. In fact, I don't think after playing on stream, I probably will not pick up Kingdoms of Amalur ever again.
No, I would have to agree with you because that's a game that you kind of watching you play encouraged me to play it. And actually, I played through it once before, and I've never played the DLC game. So I'm like, hey, there's a good chance to see what it has to offer. I remembered a lot of that game, a lot of the game's story, except for the ending. Like for the life of me, I could not recall anything about the end, how the game ends. And playing it again, I remember why. It's because it's not very memorable. It just kind of peters out.
Well, I like the concepts and the idea, and the final boss was interesting.
Yeah.
But the thing is that literally you can see where they kind of ran out of ideas and money, because the ending, and I call it in my videos the end run. It was just like you just keep running and running and running and running. You meet a couple of enemies, you kill them, and run, da 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 da. And while that doesn't necessarily happen in Shadow of Mordor, which has a very crappy ending, both as gameplay and story wise. Sorry, I mean it's a QTE fest and all that. You're like, this sucks. But it got to a point. It's like, I could try and get a power that lets me, control those giant monsters over there, but I don't care. I could do more daily challenges, but I've done all of those. I could try to keep helping people and revenge people but I've done that as well. I could try to do all this, and the version of Shadow Mordor came up with a lot of content. It was 3 years old, 4 years now. So it was like I could try all of this, but it's like I don't want to do this anymore. Kind of reminds me what happened with GTA for me. I played GTA 4 and 5. I enjoyed 5 more than 4, but in the single player, it was like I did the story, and it was very. Again, you have this great open world, but what's really missing compared, for example, Skyrim, which is an even older game, is that sandbox aspect to it. That ability to just go off the beaten path and do your own thing and build your own home and have relationships with the different people and do the side quests, right? For all the talk that Bethesda doesn't do story well, I think the reason why Bethesda doesn't quote unquote do story well is that they understand, again, the idea of story as framework. Right, the plot is to take you from point A to point B, so you can see all the sites, visit all the people, right, and get acquainted with the world. And every time I play Skyrim, I always discover something new. I don't think that even if I were to discover something new in Shadow of Mordor or the one came in this year, Shadow War, I think that's the reason why I didn't want to play Shadow War, because it was like, I don't want to go and do this again. It's like
Yeah.
the Batman series. I played back Batman Arkham Asylum. It was like, that was a fun game, but I didn't feel like I wanted to do that all over again, right?
Yeah.
Um, so so I put them together as sort of the empty world, open world syndrome situation for both of those games.
Yeah. So I don't think I played I think Kingdoms of Amalur was probably the only real open world game I played. The next one I played was a Shyness, or I think it's Chiness, the Lightning Kingdom. This was a game that was kickstarted a couple of years ago, came out this year. Um, it's a very odd assortment of RPG elements, because essentially the combat is the random encounters. They're all just monsters kind of on the map, but as soon as you run into them, the game switches to like this like fighting brawler game. So you throw punches and you throw kicks and stuff. You can charge up your magic and fling it at them or heal yourself. But essentially, it's not like the typical turn style RPGs. It just suddenly switches to this brawler, and you're supposed to like hit them repeatedly, throw kicks, punches, dodge, block, and you kind of have like this little limited feel that you're stuck in during combat, which I thought was a nice touch. Like, oh well, that's interesting. You're doing something different with your RPGs. The way you learned abilities kind of reminded me of Final Fantasy IX, which is you learn abilities through your equipment somehow. Inexplicably, which I thought is fun. I didn't finish the game, but I do want to pick it up again.
That kind of reminds me of Jade Empire. I don't know if you played Jade Empire.
I have not. That's a game I need to pick up.
It very much like that. It basically was a sort of departure. BioWare was doing the sort of tactical thing with KOTOR and Baldur's Gate, and then they said, "Oh, we can do a martial arts game." And when you start the combat, it's martial arts, right? The thing about it is, it was an Xbox OC game, and I've heard that that it has some problems when you put it basically on PC because of the control scheme, right? Adjusting it so it just feels right, and it has to, because you're doing jumps and kicks and whatnot, right?
Yeah,
It's a bit of a problem. But if you can get over that hurdle, what I seen of the game, and I remember playing of the game, it's okay. It's a pretty good, decent game, right? It's a decent game. Talking about BioWare, again, this is an old game, but I will put it in the category of, it's also an open world game. The category of, this is the way it's supposed to be played. It's Dragon Age Inquisition. I got it for the PC. Did not get any of the DLC. I probably will if I get the DLC going on that. I should get the DLC because some of the DLC is pretty fun. It suffers again from the same problem that at the end game you're like, okay, I've done enough. I just want to rush into the end. It does have a little more sandbox elements in the sense that you have this castle that you can modify, and you have very interesting characters you want to explore. Again, the BioWare thing of the romance and stuff. I want to see what happens with this character and that character and whatnot. And the characters are well written. Even the ones you hate, you don't hate them because they're badly designed. You hate them because they have something that you dislike, right? But that they're well written, right? And I say it's the way this is the way it's supposed to be played because I played it on the Xbox 360. And while the game is fun, and I would say on average the graphics, when you're just walking around, they're not that different. The texture work, specifically when it comes to the cutscene, oh dear God in heaven, it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, it's plastic figures.
Yeah, I feel like claymation. It's like doing claymation on a Ken doll kind of situation. At times.
Yes.
It's like what are you going with this, right? But it was still fun. I mean, also if you're a fan of Dragon Age, if you're not a fan of Dragon Age, I would say that that game would be like another generic fantasy open world game, right? Kind of
Yeah.
Shadow Mordor, Shadow, kind of like that. If you're not invested in Dragon Age, it's not going to be the same, right? Um, and it shows also something that EA has been doing for a while now. Is like, let's make every single game out there, no matter what it is, run on the damn Frostbite engine. I'm like, you
Yeah.
can't do that. That engine was designed for FPS, for Battlefront and Battlefield and that kind of games. You have to do a lot to. I mean, they made it work, no doubt about it. But you gotta pull a lot of work. Basically,
Yeah.
you're trying to save money and also trying not to give credit to other companies over your games. I get what you're trying to do, but allow your designers to get other engines going. Because
Yeah.
if you're, it comes to a point where using an existing engine, if you have to modify it so much to just barely make it work, you end up with stuff like Andromeda,
Yeah.
basically. And it's like, why? Why are you doing this? Well, I just told you why they're doing it, but that's not a good reason. So,
No.
no, so I would say Inquisition, which is another game I played this year, would be on the category of, yeah, this is the way it's meant to be played. Which is, for somebody like me who usually plays older games, I usually don't mind older style graphics, but sometimes they do get in the way of the experience, and
Yeah.
Inquisition is proof of that. In fact, if I do go and make play Mass Effect, I'm certainly gonna mod the hell out of all those games to make sure that I have upgraded graphics, upgraded textures, controls, that sort of thing, because they need it. I mean, they haven't aged that well. At least the first game hasn't aged that well. The others sort of have, sort of.
Yeah. My next game, another disappointing one, which is Ukulele. Uh, I kickstarted this game, and thinking, yeah, I regretted it. Just I was hoping for another Banjo-Kazooie. I started up. I was hoping it would just grab me. It did not. It I don't know what it is, but it doesn't have the same charm. And it almost looks like, well, it looks way too polished but at the same time it looks cheap in terms of like the character models, the design. I don't know how else to explain it. And it didn't have the same charm as like Banjo-Kazooie. I even did like a quick video of it, and I popped in a Banjo-Kazooie just to catch like some footage of it on the 360 version. I kind of started getting drawn into it and just kind of wanted to keep playing Banjo-Kazooie again. I'm like, what? Like, I don't know what it is. I think it's because the maps are so large and kind of empty, and the collectathon objects are just so spread out that it just kind of takes the fun out of it. And there's really nothing to see with all that added space. And it's another one I just gave up on, and I'm probably not going to pick up again. That's like $15 all spent.
Yeah. I think another game that I played briefly early in the year, because it's pretty short, and I think the reason why I remember it's because it brings me memories back from when I was a child, just like Doom. I played the Dungeons and Dragons Brawlers. They came out on Steam, and I was like, oh, okay, they're pretty cheap, and I play them, and they're a lot of fun. Mind you, of course, they're based on arcade games, right? They were basically arcade games that came out in the 90s, so they were, quarter swallowers, and so you die a lot. But for me, as someone who's played Dungeons and Dragons for a very long time, it surprisingly does a good job of capturing the feel of Dungeons and Dragons, like the special effects, the spell effects, the monsters, the character designs. It's like, wow, this game, this game knows what it's doing, and it does it very, very well. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. This is very cool. And also it got me into it. And yes, I know that we're not supposed to talk about emulation. Emulation is a dirty word when you talk about video games. But in this case, it got me into emulating arcade games from the 80s and 90s. And it's like, yeah, I remember these games, right? And also I remember how hard they were. How, they were hard before Nintendo hard. I mean, I was playing like Paperboy. I was playing the original Star Wars game. That was a shooter, it was you're in an X-wing and you're blasting fireballs and stuff like that. And it was like, I don't want to go into the sort of old games were better, but there's something to be said about those games that they were pretty fun and they were pretty simple and they were pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
And it also was a good way of watching the evolution of gaming, right? In fact, I made a video, a music tribute of the video games of the 1980s, taking games from 1980 to 1989, and there were a lot of games, and there were a lot of games I didn't play. I couldn't put the video, the recording of, but I would say that it was a nice blast from the past, and maybe we should. The industry should have more of that. I mean, I don't know. They're short games. I mean, they were designed to play for an hour or two or three at most, right?
Yeah.
But maybe, I mean, Devolver Digital, I think, is the people that really do close games to that. But most companies don't. And I think also Devolver Digital and the people at what's the Cartoon Network? What's their name brand they do? It's Adult Swim. They also do quite a bit of these games, and it's like, wow, I like to see more of those games, right? If nothing just to get ironically more variety.
Yeah.
Right. Simple, short games that are cheap to make, but also a lot of fun. And with modern graphics, and not so much modern graphics in the sense of, wow, again, you have to have a highly stylized, although Apotheon shows us that stylized games can be good. But, reaction times and, quality of life stuff, you could do it. And I think Pac-Man has been released and it was like 3D and it looks a lot of fun. And also been remake of Frogger. So yeah, you could go back and make Exacxon again or something like that, or Galaga, Galaxian, and make it fun. It doesn't have to have the same name, but or an Arkanoid or something like that.
Yeah. So my next game, it's another one I kickstarted, which was one that Jim Sterling said he was in. He did some voice acting in. I thought was kind of interesting. Which is Plague Road. It's sort of like a how would I describe it? Sort of a turn-based combat with little square grids that you move, and you have to attack enemies, and you're a doctor trying to get to a city. And unfortunately, the game's another kind of disappointment. It does okay at the bare minimum, but that's about it. It's all the credit I can give it. Even like Jim Sterling's narration is done terribly, not because of him, but just the way it's implemented, because it'll just kind of start playing over other sounds and stuff. So and there's no, the middle of the game, there's no subtitles, so you can't hear what he's saying, so you can't take in what he's saying.
Wow.
So it's another this.
Yeah. Sound design very bad in a game. That can ruin an experience.
Yeah, and it just kind of becomes a grind at the end, just having to have a bunch of characters, and I kind of had to cheese the game to beat it, in my opinion. I certainly hope that's not the way they were expecting me to play it, but I just kind of cheesed through the game. Another game I played too, just probably a little more decisive. There's some slight drama that happened in the background of this game, because I did make like a live screen. This was probably the first adult game I kind of posted up on my YouTube, which is Manzura Peaks. This was a visual novel that was intended to be episodic. This is from a game studio that I've enjoyed their games in the past. This is their first time that they were going to do something episodic, and really their first game after about 6 years of their last game. And unfortunately, it didn't work out for them, and they shut down this year.
Mm.
So, I mean, the thing that makes me enjoy their games was their writing and their humor,
Mm.
and this game had it. But they switched from doing having an artist do 2D artwork that was really good to an artist that did a 3D artwork that was barely passable. Now,
Mm.
that's probably a low blow, but it was passable, but it wasn't anything extraordinary. The models are kind of iffy, and they kind of enjoy doing these hyper masculine men, and which looked great in their 2D models, but in 3D models, not so great.
Didn't transfer over well. Didn't
No,
translate
it
out.
did not, and unfortunately, the game didn't sell well, and they ended up closing up shop a couple months later.
Mm.
That's the issues with indie games. Like if you have one flop, that's pretty much it for you.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, I don't recall in my list here any more games that are really significant that I played this year, but I do have a couple of titles, 3 titles so far that I'm kind of looking forward to in the next year. In I guess alphabetical order, and I think 2 of them are Kickstarters. One of them is basically a remake. BattleTech from Harebrained Games. And that's because it's a tactical. Well, it's based on the BattleTech property, originally from FASA. Now it's gone through several hands, and it's essentially a mech game, and it's in the tactical sense. You and your group of mech warriors pilot your mechs and do a series of missions. Sort of tactical / RPG style, right? Because there's stories and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to anything that Harebrained Studios does because I love their Shadowrun games, the 3 of them they made, and I'm hoping there's going to be more of that. Now with BattleTech, I always like BattleTech as a computer game, going all the way back to the original BattleTech games in the 80s, and then the MechWarrior games in the 90s, and even a couple of games that came out for the Xbox OC, which I wish I could emulate because you can't find them. They're exclusive for the Xbox and you can't find them on PC. Those were pretty they were not really tactical. They were more arcadey, right? And a lot of people who are hardcore BattleTech fans are like, oh, I don't like this because it's not tactical enough and this and that. And it's like it's fun. I mean, they were just fun, right? You had like power ups and pickups and had pretty good cool story. The first game was just giant robots, and the second one had a power armor that you could, grab onto people and other robots and take over them, stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun. It had tanks and whatnot. The second game in order is one I recently saw Adam Coble play at the Alpha, and that's Pathfinder Kingmaker. It's from, the source materials from Pathfinder, which were Paizo Entertainment started as the people who made the Dragon and Dungeon magazines for Wizard of the Coast during the era of 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons. When Wizard of the Coast moved to 4th edition, now they're in 5th edition, but to 4th edition, essentially people in Paizo said, well, we want to continue making 3rd edition type stuff, and they created Pathfinder, which some people call 3.75 because it was 3rd edition, 3.5, and 3.75, or Pathfinder. I never liked the idea of continuing 3rd edition because it's one of those tabletop games that got incredibly complicated, incredibly fast, but all the rules, and it was under what we used to call the SRD or the OGL, Open Gaming License, or the SRD, which basically was, okay, anybody can use our rule sets. Mind you, you can't really copyright game mechanics, but you're not supposed to be an exact copycat either, because there's a crossover between the mechanics themselves and what's called iconic items, iconic characters, iconic situations, right? That are particular to the name brand. So you can run into situation where it's like, oh yeah, I'm copying this edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and many of them. There's more than five. But here's a beholder, and a beholder is a monster that particularly comes from Dungeons and Dragons. And if Wizard of the Coast wants to, you know, make a claim over that creature, then they could. But without it, you don't really have a Dungeons and Dragons type game. So
Yeah.
yes, that sort of thing. But and I also started to play that tabletop version of Kingmaker, on their fifth edition. And what I really like is there's a thing about, and this going back to Skyrim and stuff like that, is that both in computer games and which are CRPGs and tabletop RPGs, there's always this idea of the player character gaining power, like levels and magic items and gold. But there's an implied situation where the character becomes more famous and it's supposed to have an impact on the world, but they don't really, because you start with kobolds and goblins, and then you end up fighting demons and angels and demigods, but it's more of the same. You fight something that has more hit points, more powers, more resistances, and you have to hit him harder with a bigger sword with more pluses and minuses, right? That's one of the things about Skyrim is you can do things that sort of make you important, like you take over a guild, but it's like, oh, you took over the guild.
Yeah, and then everyone treats you like a homeless person.
Like you just walked in the door. It's like, oh yeah, but we still want you to do all the quests that you could do when you walk on the door, right? Oh, you can help turn the tide of this civil war, but really once that's done, it's just basically you lock yourself out of certain locations and characters. You don't want to do that. You save the world, which was pretty cool, and you're this great hero. You come back and nobody knows about it, right? Kingmaker was supposed to do that in the vein of another game. They also made a computer game version of that, which is Birthright, which is supposed to be Dungeons and Dragons characters who also have like domains and kingdoms and have rules for that. But the integration of those things was not pretty cool. This game is supposed to have that. I think the best implication of that I've seen is from BioWare when they did Dragon Age Origins, when you build the army and then eventually use the army at the end, and then the expansion they did, which I forgot the name of it. Awakening, where you have this keep and you do missions, and you're like, oh, you're very important. You're a champion. You're the commander of the Grey, right? Has that kind of thing. But even then, that was still running around, doing most quests, killing stuff. But I never really seen a game that fully integrates that. And in a computer game version of it, maybe the computer can sort of take care of all the complicated dice rolling and adding and subtracting, and lets you play the game. And I'm looking forward to see whether or not it actually integrates itself well. What I've seen so far is basically it's an updated version of a Baldur's Gate type game, Pillars of Eternity, that sort of thing, which is pretty good. I like those games. I'm hoping that it grows into something more than that. And talking about fantasy games, finally, Neverwinter Nights, the enhanced edition. Ironically, it's the reason why I'm looking forward to it is because of the builder. Like you can build your own adventures and stuff like that, like the original. And the reason is like, well, I own the original, but after Windows XP, even the ones that are supposed to work better, with GOG working the kinks, the game still crashes. It fails to upload and stuff like that. And it's also a game that has gotten a lot of modifications and mods and has a vibrant community. I would like to see that sort of be brought back to life. It's done by Beamdog, which they've done the enhanced editions of Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale. So let's see what they can do with this game. And also have literally every single expansion under one roof, for pennies to the dollar. So hopefully that will be a good thing. So are there any games that you're looking forward to in this new year?
Let's see. I am looking forward to Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory, which is a sequel to just Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. Not sure why well, I appreciated it. Just tack on a 2 there, which was That was a small Digimon game. The combat was very reminiscent of Final Fantasy X, which I enjoyed. And I enjoy Digimon, so it's a game I'm looking forward to. Let's see. It's just Detroit Becoming Human. I'm looking forward to that one. Not necessarily because I think it's going to be any good, but it's a David Cage game, and I think the concept's interesting. I'm pretty sure David Cage's writing is going to mess it up, but it'll be hilarious in what ways he messes it up. Let's see. There's also Greedfall, which is a game that I don't know too much about, but it's made by a studio that I've enjoyed their previous games. Spiders, they just go by Spiders. They have, I believe, they kind of co-developed The Orcs and Men, Mars Warlogs, which are two games that I enjoy. So I'm kind of looking forward to that game as well. Let's see. There's also Vampire with a Y instead of an I, which is developed by Donut, which is set to re-release sometime next year. Another game I'm kind of following because of the studio. I'm hoping that's going to be good. It looks like a dark RPG with vampires in it. I'm not too big a fan of vampires, but if it looks interesting enough, I'll play it. And their past games have entertained me very much, so I'm willing to give it a chance.
Does it have any connection to Vampire the Masquerade?
I don't think it does.
Because I heard actually good things about the video game, the Vampire the Masquerade, that came out.
Yeah, I have.
It was buggy, but yeah, still pretty good.
No, I don't think it does. It doesn't look like it does at all. Let's see. There's a couple of other games I'm looking forward to, but not necessarily. Bayonetta 1 and 2, which aren't new releases, but they are coming out on the Switch, which is, unfortunately, we didn't get our hands on a Wii when they were more commonly available, or Wii U when they were more commonly available. So we're kind of looking forward to playing Bayonetta 1 and 2 in my household. So not necessarily new. There's a couple of games that I'm looking forward to, not because I'm particularly looking forward to playing them, but just kind of seeing how they're going to affect the market and how the gaming industry as a whole and how people are going to react to it. Let's see, we got Anthem. Just going to be BioWare's big, not Destiny 2, hopefully. So
BioWare's big roll of the dice, I suppose.
Yeah, even though I think most people are probably going to expect that game to get pushed back to 2019, that wouldn't surprise me. There was We Happy Few. So if you recall, We Happy Few was a game that was kickstarted. Then it was released on early access, which I remember Jim Sterling wasn't very happy about. And then it switched hands with the developer pretty much just giving it all to Gearbox. And then it became a AAA mess with its whole now there's collector's editions and deluxe editions and Golden Goose editions. And here, buy the special edition that doesn't come with the game, but it comes with all this tat. Yeah. There's also System Shock 2, which or System Shock, the original, supposedly a remake. I've heard good things about that game, but I've heard that it's pretty much unplayable now in terms of graphics.
Yeah, and also, well, it's one of those games where it comes in the vein of the 2000, early 90s, late 90s, 2000s CRPGs, and people's like, oh, this is a real RPG because it has like a ton of, tweaking to do with the character. And it's also a game where it's like, oh, you have to learn how to use a gun. You have to learn how to use a shotgun. You have to, you start with, oh, you have a gun. You don't know how to shoot it. You sort of point blank and and you miss and stuff like that. It's like you have to use the gun more often so you can, or you want to use a shotgun. Okay, grab a shotgun. Okay, start shooting stuff until you actually get better at it, right? Um, Kind of like I felt about Mass Effect when it's like, oh yeah, you're a space marine, but you don't know how to use an assault rifle, and you got to put points on pistols, and you can barely hit anything with a pistol. But once you have all the points, you can use it as a sniper rifle. It's like, what? Okay, things they change, right? But I
Yeah.
think that's what some people remember System Shock for, because it's that kind of customization, granular customization. A lot of people tend to assume it's the equivalent of a role playing game, right? It's like, oh, it's a role playing game. It has very in depth, quote unquote, sophisticated, complex, granular, character creation and skill sets and all that, which I really don't have the patience for. So I don't know if the new one will be that way. If it
Mm.
is, then well, maybe a lot of people who thought that was great back in the day might go like, yeah, not so much anymore. Who knows? Or maybe it is granular without being, you know, um, hair pulling inducing or something. I don't know.
All right, so we're coming next to towards the end of the hour. I'll rattle off some of my other games that I played that I thought were great this year. Extracurricular activities. It's a furry-based visual novel RPG that I thought was great. It does have adult content, so don't look it up if you're under 18. Strange Flesh is another adult game, small beat 'em up game. Has interesting concepts of mind control and consent. I would probably question aren't intentional, but
Mm-hmm.
I thought it raised them. Divinity Original Sin 2,
Mm-hmm.
probably my game of the year. Without a doubt, very intricate RPG elements and phenomenal storytelling. Still haven't finished it. Still need to get through it. But man, it's so just involving.
Mm.
Undertale for the PlayStation Vita. It's Undertale. Great game. If you haven't played it, go play it. Uh, Virginia. Virginia was an interesting game. It's mostly, and it's more, I would call it more of an interactive movie that you're supposed to interpret because there's no dialogue whatsoever. Just interpret through its visual, just completely through the visuals
Mm-hmm.
and the music. It's an interesting game to sit through and watch. There is some interaction, but there isn't really much of a choice in what you do. There are some things that you can do that kind of affect the background a little, but it's not going to change the outcomes at all. Let's see, Ratchet and Clank, the movie, the video game. My tradition is that these games get me to buy the newest PlayStation console because I enjoy the Ratchet and Clank series.
Mm-hmm.
Lately, they've been I would say that the Ratchet and Clank games have been on decline, and this game is at the bottom of the peak because it just feels like a cheap cash in.
Mm.
The characters barely act like themselves, and they're just kind of devoid of personality. Not the same personality that they had in the original game, which is just supposed to be a reimagining of.
Mm.
And lastly, the game that's kind of squeaked by the end of the year is 2064 Read Only Memories, which I just finished my first playthrough of. Phenomenal game. Very interesting RPG or cyberpunk elements with RPG dialogue. I love it. I want to replay through it again. It's very reminiscent of, I feel like what Deus Ex Human Revolution should have been. It's like this mix of gritty but kind of colorful humor.
Mm-hmm.
It's not overbearing humor, but it's just enough humor that it kind of doesn't take you out of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you ever play the original Deus Ex, it's almost like the game doesn't take itself 100% seriously, which I feel was a mistake of what they did with Human Revolution. It takes itself way too seriously.
Jensen, you
Yes,
have a job to do.
And I think that's the biggest indicator that the every player has mocked the marketing with the "I didn't ask for this," because it's not supposed to take itself seriously. And then, of course, they messed that up in this marketing for the second sequel of that, which was like, "Oh, I totally asked for this." Herp derp. Remember internet? Remember when that was the thing? So yeah, those are the games that I played. So interesting mix of games.
Yeah. So we have come to the bottom of the hour, and as always, I'd like to ask Chapelmon, where can we find you on the interwebs?
So you can find me as Chopomon on YouTube and pretty much anywhere. I'm Chopomon_Aragon on Twitter. And yeah, let's see what the new year brings.
And you can always find me here on Twitch under Lessons Learned 1, and of course on YouTube on Lessons Learned, where you can catch the VODs of this podcast and other things that I do here on Twitch as well. So thank you for being here, Chad. As always, if you like what we do, please comment, follow, and subscribe. And we will see you when we see you. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.